Dear friends, welcome to a new edition of Talking Europe, one of our flagship online events where we sit down together with key policymakers in the EU institutions to discuss what the EU is doing to address some of the citizens' concerns. Today we are at the headquarters of the European Commission and we're sitting here with the head of cabinet of Commissioner Kubilius. Commissioner Kubilius is dealing with security and defense, one of the key areas that the EU is currently busy with, and his head of cabinet is of course one of the people who are steering the work of the Commissioner throughout the legislative process, engaging both with the European institutions but also with capitals across Europe. Thank you very much for joining us. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having us in your office. And I would like to start our conversation perhaps with reference to the current geopolitical context. We have seen the return of war on our continent. We have seen a change of posture in Washington, much more expectation upon Europeans to take their own security and defense in their hands. The European Commission has been quite fast and active in this regard. The white paper on security and defense, but also ReArm Europe and other initiatives demonstrate that the EU wants to step up, wants to do more. Could you take us through some of these initiatives and how they are designed to address the challenges we face?
Well, thanks a lot. Indeed, the Commission moved pretty fast because we have no time to wait. Unfortunately, Putin is not going to wait or he's not going to stop his war economy. And Europe needs to be ready. So my boss, Commissioner Kubilius, his new portfolio was established. He was clearly tasked to move ahead and to prepare European continent, to help member states clearly, to prepare for all possible contingencies. So what we're trying to do, first of all, we're trying, I would say, to incentivize member states to commit. Member states need help in spending more to ramp up their capabilities to be ready. Then we need to address the problems or bottlenecks in the defense industrial base. It is quite big in European Union, but it's really fragmented because the demand was fragmented from the member states, the supply is fragmented. And the third thing that we're addressing, clearly we need to not only to have demand coming in, not only funds coming in into the defense industry, but we need to help defense industry to move fast to be ready to produce. So that means we need to address the possible bottlenecks or possible red tape that existing in the legal environment. So that's why we proposed, first of all, ReArm EU package. So that ReArm EU package was consisting of certain instruments like SAFE, like possibilities for member states to increase their national defense deficit in spending more, to have more flexibility. And then we're advancing also with the negotiations with the EDIP, European Defense Investment Program. So we are pushing member states to be able to spend more, but we also need to address the problems on the defense industrial base. So these are, I would say, the major priorities, what we're currently working on. It's related with the capability gaps in the member states to fill in, industry to be ready to produce. But there are also other things that need to be addressed. So let's say as military mobility. To move the military capabilities or military goods or defense goods across Europe is really not an easy process, to put it mildly. So that's why member states are also encouraging us and industries as well, militaries as well. So can you come up with a meaningful proposals how we can harmonize the licensing procedures across the EU, how to have member states more quickly issuing permits to move the military stuff across the EU. So this is what we're working on now, military mobility package.
Indeed. And you think these initiatives are indeed very important, and of course the elements that they're there to address have been needing addressing for a while. But are they sufficient to take us towards the kind of defense cooperation and integration perhaps necessary to face up to the demands? My question is, the focus is very much in supporting member states to invest more in their defense security, helping the European defense industry to increase capacity. But are we maybe forgetting also the need for institutional reform to be able to take decisions together faster?
Yes and no. Yes, because clearly for years, maybe decisions they were not being taken quickly, but we all need to understand the Commission, we are just the guardian of the treaties, so we are working based on our competences. So member states are in a driving seat, so it's for member states to decide how fast and how ambitiously they would like to move. So probably these are the limits, but maybe looking into the future, we need to think more how Europeans can collectively make decisions more fast. So now we're trying to incentivize member states. We're trying to incentivize the industry. But it's again political decision whether the leaders at the European Council, they would like Commission to have a bigger role to help member states, maybe in a joint procurement, or to do more in other competences. It's for leaders to decide. But probably we need to be fast. And let's say at least one thing, I can give you an example, the SAFE regulation. The SAFE regulation is basically financial firepower that allows member states to take much cheaper loans based on the or guaranteed by EU budget. So this proposal that we crafted probably in a weeks was also adopted pretty fast. It took from March in July was adopted, so less than 6 months. I guess it was 3 months. Yes, it was exceptional procedure, procedure based on the emergency clause on the Article 122. So clearly, when we want, we can. But there are other examples where, let's say on EDIP, we are still negotiating with the co-legislators because EDIP program we proposed already, it's probably 18 months. And I hope that co-legislators will finalize the trialogues by the end of this year. So I think that procedures can be more quick if we have a real sense of urgency and emergency.
It's interesting because you mentioned the need for member states and European leaders to take the initiative in this regard. And this summer we conducted an opinion poll to see how our fellow citizens are feeling about exactly that. And we noticed that in the countries that we surveyed, the majority of people do favor closer military cooperation. And they go as far as supporting the idea of having a common command, for example, in the context of this cooperation. So I think the ground is fertile in terms of public opinion's appetite for closer European cooperation, and the door is open for member states and EU leaders to take that extra step a bit further. And that perhaps takes me to our next question. We, as I mentioned in our introduction, we are unfortunately witness to a brutal war taking place on European soil since the full-scale invasion of Russia. Ukraine has been defending itself, its democracy, its independence. And Europe, of course, has stepped up and has supported considerably that effort. Take us through some of the things that Europe is doing, the EU is doing to support Ukraine, and perhaps what else can we be doing to increase that effort?
So you know that European Union is probably in the real numbers is the biggest supporter for Ukraine in terms of the financial support, military support, political clearly support. But we need to do more because Ukraine de facto is a security guarantee for Europe now. We want to give security guarantees to Ukrainians if the peace is going to be concluded based on the Ukrainian priorities and on their needs. But de facto, what Ukrainians are doing now, they are getting their first hit from Russians. And we can see how efficient they are being able to hit down the drones, hundreds of drones, while we have 1 or 2 drones going into our in member states' territories, and we're still not able to either detect or ground them. So I think we're supporting Ukraine a lot. We need to do more, especially financially and militarily, because they are at war. Second thing is while supporting them, we're also learning a lot. So what we did at the European Commission, we developed certain programs, certain tools that Ukrainians can benefit from our financial, indirect assistance. Let's say safe regulation. What we propose that member states, when they're taking loans for their own needs to buy the necessary military capabilities, they can buy using these loans either from European defense industrial base, or from Ukrainian, or from Norwegian. Norwegian because, yes, it's a common European economic area, so Norway. But we intentionally put Ukraine to be able to sell all these their military industry products that they developed, unfortunately, during the war, because of they tested all the things there in the battle. So we opening possibility for their industry to be able to get more finances from us while we're getting the product. So it's very unique. And with this, we de facto preparing some integration of Ukraine into European defense industrial base. So they will get investments, they will get funds to their defense industrial base companies, and they are getting closer to our industrial base. Should we do more? Clearly we need to do more, that Ukraine wins the war, that Ukraine is able to defend and to deter Russia. And I hope that countries and member states and leaders and societies will continue to recognize that Ukrainians are de facto defending us from Russia being aggressor directly towards us already.
Indeed, that's very true. The current US administration, President Trump, has said that he expects Europeans to do much more when it comes to their security defense in general and the war in Ukraine in particular, especially once a ceasefire is agreed. His wish is to see Europeans provide the security guarantees alongside the US, but also put boots on the ground to safeguard that peace. Again, the opinion poll we did this summer demonstrated that Europeans generally see the need for a common EU response to the war in Ukraine and they favor that in its majority. But they mostly want to see Europe adopt sanctions, provide humanitarian assistance, and lead diplomatically. There is less appetite when it comes to providing arms, security guarantees, or putting soldiers in Ukraine. About 12% of people, actually, only 12% of people support the idea of European soldiers in Ukraine. How do we reconcile those two, that gap between the expectations of our allies and the needs on the ground and what our citizens are actually prefer to do?
I think citizens, they want security, but they do not realize that the war is already on European continent. And that's why I think we are still thinking that only sanctions can help or only financial support can help. Yes, it definitely will help, but it's not enough. Clearly, we need to do more on sanctions, and you heard Commission tabled the 19 sanctions package. We really need to stop Russian oil and gas coming into some member states' markets, because that directly supports the Russian war economy and the ability in generally to generate military power. Whether European citizens would like to see European troops there on the ground, it's a question that I don't have an answer. Anyway, it's in the member states' decision. It's for the leaders, for the prime ministers, presidents, and ministers to decide. European Union, our institutions, what we can do, we can help to support if at the end some member states decide to go in, if they need more military capability. So this is what we're creating. We're creating the European defense and industrial base that can quickly switch on urgency mode to be on the supply side. That's why we invented all these new instruments for our defense, but also for Ukraine, like SAFE or EDIP and Brave Tech EU, where we want European companies to partner more with Ukrainian new companies and to develop new products. So basically we as EU institutions here, based on our competences, we are on the supporting end here. But leaders need to take a decision.
Indeed.
And realize the threat.
And perhaps it is up to them also to prepare public opinion or be honest with European citizens about the trade-offs. As you said, we are talking about Europe's security. We are talking about the integrity of our democracy and our way of life. So I think perhaps we haven't had that conversation with citizens, or member state leaders haven't had that conversation with their citizens about the trade-offs and the sacrifices involved.
I think in generally discussions in the societies are very, very problematic and very difficult, because clearly now in the 21st century, every citizen on the table, he has a lot of news, a lot of problems to be solved. And only when you see already the real threat coming, then you are starting to change. So you see the President von der Leyen traveled to the frontline countries, starting from Finland, going back to down to the Bulgaria. Why? Because clearly these countries, the citizens of these countries, they feel the biggest threat. Because almost every day we hear now news about the unknown drones entering the territory of one or another country. Now, last day or yesterday it was, then drones were detected in Denmark already. No one knows whose drones, but clearly not the Danish drones or not simple civilians who decided to have free drones flying in an organized manner. So all these threats are coming closer, and then the citizens are starting to say, yes, we need to have more, to do more. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to say today because to get the support from all the citizens, because clearly, yes, social economic issues, it's much more important for you. Probably the price of the bus ticket is much more important than understanding that there is somewhere a big threat on the other part of Europe. But we all need to understand that this internal market, our euro, depends on integrity of internal market and also ability of the front line to defend entire continent actually from the Russian threat. So that's why President von der Leyen and Commissioner Kubilius, they traveled to these countries, they heard what they need, they heard their emergency and urgency matters. So we are going to respond with probably help them to develop their capabilities to counter these threats. And the society is very, very supportive there. So unfortunately, probably people will make decisions when the real threat is already at your door. But that's why our job is try to push a little bit to say, look, we're looking a little bit ahead. We are at your service. We're to help to create a value added and to help you to make a decision that you need to make, but not only after the emergency is already on your back door.
Indeed, it will be too late then. But that also is quite interesting, and I think the initiative of Commissioner Kubilius and Commission President von der Leyen, it was very welcome indeed to go to the ground, speak with people, engage with them, because again, our polling has demonstrated a good level of knowledge around the European Union and its institutions in general, but that knowledge becomes a little bit more thin when it comes to specific individuals and specific initiatives. And especially considering that the portfolio of a Commissioner for Security and Defense is quite new, there is a lot of work that we need to do collectively, both the European institutions, but also NGOs and civil society who are positively predisposed towards your work. What other initiatives do you think the Commissioner Kubilius, yourself, the Commission in general, should undertake to inform citizens, especially in this ecosystem that you described earlier, that they are bombarded with often conflicting messages?
I think we need to be very clear what value added we are bringing. And the value added has to be visible and substantial. So that's why I can tell you that after they travel to these frontline countries, after we are seeing more and more drones flying in, we proposed that President von der Leyen in her State of the Union, she said, yes, we need to help these member states to build a drone wall. Okay, you can call drone wall, maybe it's not a physical drone wall, it's a system of systems, it's a capabilities. So, and I see now, after all these statements, that it's a huge interest coming from the media, from the people, from NGOs, how you will do that, when you will do that, how you will help member states. So I think everyone expects a concrete result. So now these expectations, we should not let down. We need to table a concrete proposals, but at the end, member states will need to take a decisions. So I think only good results, only good projects and good proposals can make European institutions more visible and understandable for the people. We should not talk the language that people do not understand. We need to talk the language that people understand and expect. So this is what we're trying to do.
And I have to admit that today's conversation has helped us to go a certain way in that direction, because indeed it allows our viewers to get a better idea about your work and the added value that the European institutions are offering. Thank you very much. This was really informative indeed, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you very much, and good luck spreading everything what we do here for your audience.
With pleasure, with pleasure. Thanks a lot for watching us. Stay tuned in for the next issue of Talking Europe.